And then I have a score. I have a score from the judge in
8 point,
Southeast Texas.
8.5. That's pretty
That's
good for
pretty
number
Yeah,
good.
one.
it was. I mean, it would have been higher if you guys had introduced yourself. But there's extra
Holy
credit.
cow.
There's extra credit for Bill. You honoring Genesis 1:28, which is be fruitful and multiply.
Yes,
So with
thank you.
7 children, man, you hit that. So that got you an extra couple of points right there.
All right. Oh, yeah. So, no, I appreciate that. 8.5.
Solid.
I'm actually stunned by that. It was,
No, it was very free flowing. I really
yeah,
enjoyed it, and
yeah.
and I don't remember a whole lot after I found out you had 7 kids, but I remember Austin, and I remember that Jared was born, the year you graduated from high school.
Yes,
So
I know.
and I was let's see, and I was already out of college, married, and had a kid. So at that point,
I know
Wow.
it's weird. It's like three generations are coming together here, which is fine.
Yeah, and we actually fade between, it's like me
we
with the
do.
full dark, and then Bill with the kind of salt and pepper, and then
and there
old
you go.
old white Mike there.
That's right.
Exactly. Exactly.
I just went on Do Not Disturb on Teams, and I said, I've got some guys that, we're desperate for guests on a podcast, so I'm going to be tied up for an hour.
That's us.
I don't know. Mike, with that 8.5, I don't know if I'm really that desperate anymore.
There, you shouldn't be. And, this one will probably be like a 10.2 out of a
Oh,
10.
Ooh.
So,
okay, boy, the bar is set now. So thank you so much. At 8.5, we got to frame that one. There we go. Well, fantastic. Well, I think it's very important, Jared, that we critique ourselves from our very first episode. There was lots of ums and ahs, and Jared, you were looking down to the left quite a bit. I think we've adjusted camera angles and so forth, but we made a mistake. We never introduced ourselves at all on that podcast. We just started talking. So why don't we take care of that now? So everybody out there, I am Bill Harris. I am the Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing over at VectorX, a Salesforce partner. I have a very lovely wife of about 20 years, and we have 7 adult children. We're a blended family. No, we're not traveling around the country doing musical acts or anything like that. We have 3 boys in the service, 1 in the Army, 1 in the Air Force, and 1 in Space Force. Yes, Space Force. Yeah, I know. Isn't that interesting? And also have a daughter who is a doctor. So we are very, very blessed. We live outside of the Charlotte area, and I've been in the Salesforce space a very, very long time. So, Jared, why don't you kick things off?
Yeah. So Jared Anders, I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for VectorX out of Chattanooga. I report to Bill. If you listen to episode 1, then you know all about how Bill and I met. But I got 2 little ones, 2.5 and 6 months old, and I'm married to my incredible wife, Molly. And so super thankful to be on this podcast and be able to share some fun business stuff with you, but even more excited to introduce our first guest, Mike Chaudron. So Mike, thanks for joining us.
thank you very much, guys. It is really exciting to be here, and I'm speaking to you from about 30 miles west of Houston in Cross Creek Ranch in Fulshear, Texas. But anyway, really thrilled to be here. We're going to talk about Mike's rules here at some point. And Mike's rule number 39 is know the classics. And the classics are those important movies like Ghostbusters and Blues Brothers and Animal House and Stripes and Tommy Boy and Hunt for Red October. So rule 39 applies here, guys, because in Ghostbusters, they're shooting down the ghost in the hotel room right at the first, and Egon looks at him and goes, wait a minute. I forgot to tell you something. Don't cross the street. And Bill Murray says, I'm confused on this good, bad thing. What does that mean? He goes, look, it's bad. We all blow up. And Bill Murray says, okay, important safety tip. don't cross the streams. Okay, so guys, you just did it, but important safety tip on podcasting: introduce yourselves.
Ah,
So there you had it. But you did a nice job there, guys. So really nice to be on with you guys. My sons grew up with Jared and worked in a nice Tex-Mex place in Johnson City. So we have a lot in common, and really excited to be here. So thanks, guys, for having me.
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, it's really great to have you. You are our very first guest on this podcast. I know it's a new venture for us. We are definitely putting ourselves out there. You have some experience being on other podcasts, which is great.
Yeah.
You can help educate us a little bit. And I definitely want to get into. I printed these out yesterday. These are all your rules
Perfect.
that you have
Yes.
published
Yeah.
now. And I'm a
Right.
little curious, Mike, what started you down this journey? Because I looked
Yeah.
at these rules and I've been living by probably half of them.
Uh,
Okay. So how did that journey begin for you in
yeah.
your career and coming up with these things?
So, but being gregarious and an outgoing sales leader, I've always had these sayings because I always believe it's effective to have analogies and examples when you're trying to make a point instead of just because I said so. So that's where they started, and then my wife and I are big fans of the show NCIS,
Mm.
and there's a character on there, Leroy
Leroy
Jethro
Jethro
Gibbs,
Gibbs. Oh yeah.
and there's things called Gibbs rules, and it's all about NCI stuff, but it's like Gibbs rule number 9: always carry a knife. So we were just talking about these one time, and one of my direct reports said, you got to capture these. It's Mike's rules. So we started with about 25, and that was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And they really got a life of their own when I was with Underwriters Laboratories, and we're on this global sales call, and one of the VPs said, "Which rule is that, Mike?" And I said it, and we had to send it around to the globe. And the next thing I know, I've got engineers calling me, going, "Okay, Rule 16, don't more than 2 emails on the subject. I'm calling you." So that's kind of the genesis of them, just from the gray hair and experience. But it's been a lot of fun putting those together. And I've stolen most of them, Bill, which is why you know them,
Yeah.
because I've taken them from Bear Bryant and Teddy Roosevelt and Abraham Lincoln and others on there. But anyway, that's where they've come from, and it's been fun putting them together.
Yeah. Well, it was very interesting to read through them because again, I have used them before. And one I'm particularly interested in, and it kind of ties to a couple of them, but is the 2 ears, 1 mouth. I think that's number 4 for you. And
Yes.
then the number 55 is that uh, what is it? Telling is not selling.
Telling is not selling. Yep.
And so I've applied that a lot in my career. It's like, when I was a young punk and, sales and consulting and so forth, I just wanted to tell my story and get it out there and just tell the customer what they need. Right. And I learned very quickly and got humbled many times that I had to listen a lot more than I ever talked.
Yeah. So what I tell my team, that they're enthusiastic, and we love our company, right? What we do. But what rule 5, I mean, what rule 4 is about is, don't just show up and throw up.
Yeah.
You know, find out what the customer needs, really get to know them, understand what their needs are, which you guys do, and that just makes you much more effective. So let's not forget rule 1: selling something always makes everything better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. It does. Boy, it makes those bad days really good, huh?
It absolutely does, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. But it's just, I enjoy being a leader. I enjoy putting together high performing teams, and this just brings a little fun to it. I mean, even yesterday, I posted a couple of YouTube clips on teams that just applied to what our team was going through at the time, and applied the rule to it. So we're having some fun with it.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a pretty motivational leader. You get behind your team. I think one of your other rules is, celebrate your team's wins. And so how do you
Yeah.
do that? How do you do
Yeah.
that as a leader?
So the first thing is, you've got to hire the right people. Um, and there's an I'm sorry about that, but you've got to hire the right people. And one thing that we do is, when we're hiring people, is we look for cultural fit first. So I'm more interested in having people who celebrate the success of the team as much as they do their own success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being a good team member, we can teach them the technical aspects and we can even work with them on how to sell, but they've got to have the right attitude. So a former boss of mine called me the Nick Saban of sales recruiting because I can recruit really good people, and I've had a good career hiring people a lot smarter than me.
Yeah. Well, I will take that as a win for us over here because I hired Jared. And
There you
so
go.
I guess I have a little Nick Saban in me after all, because Jared has been an absolute blessing for us over here at Vector X, and he's killing it.
Well, we'll see what happens because usually a year ends when I taper off. So we'll see if that works out for you.
That's exactly right.
So, Mike, I'd love to talk a little bit about you. You just discussed a little bit about your career, your former bosses, things like that. Can you just tell us a little bit about your journey into sales, how you got into it, and then how you ended up where you are today?
Sure. The journey is never a straight line. And if you'd asked, 20-year-old Mike where he's going to be, I certainly wouldn't have dreamed that I've been able to do what I love so much in my career. And it really started as a kid. I grew up close to Gulf Shores, Alabama, a long time ago before it looks like it looked now. And my dad had a service station, a garage, a wrecker service, a parts house. He started the ambulance service in Gulf Shores. I mean, he's just really kind of a cool entrepreneur. And so I worked there every summer and just, got my hands dirty and pumped gas and sold parts and stuff. But I realized that there was a need. And that need was people were going to the beach. There weren't many places to stop. And my dad had a customer who was a truck farmer and he grew watermelons and a lot of different things. So I started buying truckloads of watermelons when I was 15 years old. And every morning I would slice one up, go put it out by Highway 59, a mile and a half north of the beach. And people started buying watermelons and I paid $1 a piece and I sold them for $2 a piece. And I paid for my college at the University of Alabama with watermelon money.
Wow.
And at that point, it taught me that I had to learn to interact with people, engage, add-on sales, right? You just bought a tank of gas, don't you need a watermelon or two to go with that, to that inner tube we just filled up in air. So that taught me how to interact with people. So that started the journey, ended up at the University of Alabama, which I love dearly. And graduated from there, met my wife there, but had to sell my way through college. I had that money from the watermelons, but I also needed walking around money. So I worked for Sears back when there were Sears stores and
Actual
sold
stores? Wow.
actual stores and sold furniture and carpet, really bad furniture and carpet. And stayed in
That's why
touch with
there's no Sears anymore. Everybody.
exactly. But I'll assure you, some of the mattresses I sold are still out there.
Yeah.
And but I stayed in touch with my old boss there for a long time, and I held the record for a part-time salesperson in sales there for like 8 years. And finally, somebody beat me when prices went up. So that got me into sales. And then from there, spent some time in financial services out of college. Got tired of little old ladies calling me asking where their bond payments are on Sunday morning before I go to Central Baptist Church in Johnson City. So transitioned to the environmental space in about 17 years ago, and now have been in the TIC industry, which is testing, inspection, and certification. So names like UL, I've been there. So that's what really led me here. But as we've gone through the journey, I just knew that I had such a passion for working with people, customers, and then also coworkers, employees are direct reports that work for me, and I just have a real passion for seeing people succeed. And so that's how I've gotten here. And then there are a lot of ways that I've learned just from great leaders and mentors on how to put together high performing teams. And so now, as I'm looking towards the end of my career, I think we've almost got it figured out. And that's when the magic happens, when you bring together a team that's committed to the team success.
Yeah, absolutely. Embrace others' success. I think that's a really important quality for a leader to have.
It is. One of the things that I do when I come into a new role is when I sit down with the people that I'm going to be working with, I let them know right off the bat, my success is predicated on yours.
Yeah.
So in other words, I'm going to do everything I can to help make you successful, because if you're successful, we're successful, I'm successful, everybody wins. And that has really served me well because that just lets people know right off the bat that I have their best interest at heart, and we'll do everything I can to help them succeed.
I think that's great. I kind of look at it, I've used a similar kind of an analogy before in my past, where it's like my job is to get you across the finish line first. I'm going to get behind you and push you. Okay, help you do whatever I need to do to get you to your success. Okay, because if you're successful, I'll be successful.
Precisely.
Yep.
Yeah.
And let's don't forget, Rule 13 though, because if you're not the lead dog, the view is always the same. So you've got to keep a little competition going within the sales team. So we just finished up and had a really good February. The biggest, we're on a weird fiscal year, but it's the biggest month of the year for us, and it was really,
Congrats.
really exciting. So this morning I sent everyone on my team a Janet Jackson clip from YouTube, and she was singing "What Have You Done for Me Lately?" Just to kind of level set back, right? Okay, congratulations, rear view mirror.
Yeah.
What have you done for me in March? And so it just so to have a little structural tension, because ultimately, guys, this sales is a performance sport,
Totally.
right? I mean, there's no room on the scorecard for pictures. That's one of the rules also, and that's from Arnold Palmer.
Yeah.
But it's black and white. What's at the bottom right hand column on the CFO spreadsheet every month, and there's no messing around with what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of times we see people that have played in sports go into sales, right? I mean, you see that a lot. Do you have anybody on your teams like in the past that have played sports, or did you play sports?
Well, yeah. So obviously, I actually had an HR director tell me one time, Mike, you got to stop hiring 45-year-old guys with mustaches. So we really do go for some diversity, and that was that was probably 15 years ago. So, but yeah, one of the things I like to do is I like to see people. We have a big initiative going on right now where we're using interns from transitioning service people.
Yeah.
So I like that, hiring people with military experience. But yeah, I like to hire people that have some sort of competitive background, whether it's piano or football. So, at the end of the day, I'm a frustrated football coach. So to your question, and I know what I think you're about to do, is that yes, I played high school football at Foley, Alabama High School, where Kenny Stabler and Julio Jones both played for Foley and then went to Alabama.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that has a degree from there of those three, but I think Julio is working on his degree seriously right now. So I played high school football. We had a team that was smaller than these schools for Mobile, and we were 27-3 over a 3-year period. And I just had a blast. And so anyway, I enjoyed playing football. I wore the number 57 because my mother graduated from Foley High School in 1957. So I did that. So I wanted everyone to know how old my mother was. And but she actually got a real kick out of that. And my girlfriend's mom was in that class, and a lot of people that mean a lot to me were in my mom's class of 57. And my mom died in 22, and I'm in contact with probably 10 or 11 of her classmates.
Wow.
So anyway, but yes, I played football in high school.
Well, we actually have a throwback here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
There he
Boy,
is.
but how about that head of lettuce there, guys?
Oh, I'm telling you. We looked at those pictures from us back in the day, and I was like, man, I had such good hair. But man, that is a mop right
That
there.
is-
Oh, dude, man, my dad hated it so much.
They always
because
do.
you couldn't see my ears, and but the chicks liked it, and which is why I did it. And you can't even see it, but I got a really good Fuji going pretty good in there too that my mom just hated. But that's Foley High School, and I have such great memories of from there, and still have some dear friends that that are from Foley High School, and we text and talk pretty regularly to this day.
Hey, as we've talked a little bit. I was raised in Texas, right? And I'm 6'3". I was 220 pounds. Played football for a few years in high school, early high school, by the way. And I wasn't big enough to play.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, they
it's
grow them out there with necks out to here.
oh, yeah. I mean, I live next to Katy,
Yeah.
which has,
Yeah.
they actually put their football stadium on 60 Minutes
Hmm.
because it's got a Chick-fil-A and a video board from Academy Sports and seats 24,000 with suites and stuff. So, and one of my sons is a junior high football coach, and they play in that stadium sometimes, and it's really really cool. But I just really enjoyed football. It taught me a lot of life lessons. My head coach was a wonderful gentleman named Lester Smith, and we would be doing 2-a-day practices. And in Gulf Shore, Foley, Alabama, that's painful. But so we would do 6:30 in the morning, and we would do 5 in the afternoon, except on Wednesdays. And Wednesdays we went at 3, and it's hotter at 3 than it is 5. And I never really understood why until I found out later. Lester was a deacon in his church, so he did the service early so he could take his family to church on Wednesday night. Now, 15-year-old Mike didn't think that was very good, because it was hotter then. But as I became an adult, I realized the lessons that I learned from Coach Smith about discipline and being a good husband and a good father and all that stuck with me. So when I saw Coach Smith at my mom's funeral, I made sure to bring my sons over to, like, this is Coach Smith. And this is a man who had a big impact on my life. And I sort of try to use his example with my salespeople, in that I would like to have a similar impact on the lives of people that we work with, that Lester Smith did.
Yeah, and that brings up another one of your rules about, the harder you work, the luckier you get, right?
Yep.
And it is about work ethic.
It is.
It's about putting your energy and passion into things, and good things will happen. Everybody's journey isn't straight, right?
It isn't, and that's from the golfer Gary Player, who said that. And he was always smaller than Nicholas and Palmer, a little scrawny guy, and he worked out all the time. But he just worked really hard, and as a result, he ended up being pretty lucky in his career. So I think it's not just work. I think it's effective work. I mean, you've got to have a path to get better. So, for example, I always tell my people pretty early on that I'm not a nice guy. You may think I'm a nice guy. I'm a kind guy. And the difference is, a nice guy is not going to tell you things you don't want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's kind will coach you and tell you, okay, this is what you need to do to get better, because that person is kind enough they want to see you succeed. So they'll have those tough conversations with you. So while my group tends to have a lot of fun, they also know that we hold ourselves to a high standard, and that just like my boss is going to coach me, I'm going to coach you, and I'm going to coach you hard.
Yeah.
And we're going to get better. And there's, if you're coming at it from the right space of your heart, people take it well. So I like to be a coach. But the other thing that my son said when they met Lester was, is he the one that kicked you in the behind all the time? I said, no, that was the offensive line coach, who was the meanest human ever on the face of the earth. And Lester was just horrified. So, but I love football. I think it's an analogy for life.
Yeah.
I told Lester at the funeral, our quarterback was this big, dumb kid, and he was just a great athlete, but he's dumber than a bag of hammers. And he didn't know the offense like I did. So Coach Smith would hand signal the calls in. Well, this quarterback didn't know the signals. I did. So I called the plays in the huddle. And we never told Coach Smith. There was no reason to get him upset about his quarterback, because the guy was a stud. So, but at the funeral, I told him, I said, hey, did you know that I called the plays? He goes, no, you didn't. And I said, oh, let me tell you what, T left triple 35 was this. He goes, you did call them? I said, yeah, and I remember those too. I can't tell you when my mother-in-law's birthday is, but I remember the offense at Foley High School. And so just, it was just fun. So I think, you had to, whether you're called a leader, you can be a leader. So I wasn't the quarterback, but I had to step up because Mike couldn't remember the signals that Coach Smith, but he knew the plays and executed well.
Yeah. And again, one of those things that I look back on, I was trying to relate all of my experiences to every single one of your lessons. I really looked at this for like 3 hours, and the whole analogy around the coach. I always believed in, be a coach before a critic, right? There's always times to be critical, right?
Absolutely.
But you have to coach first. All right. You
Yeah.
have to give somebody the path, give them structure. All right.
Yeah.
Tell them what your expectations are. right?
Yep.
And then you come
Exactly.
back and advise later about, hey, you could have done this better. Okay. Or, hey,
Yeah.
maybe let me show you a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always like them to give me their feedback first. So after
Mm,
customer calls, we go and kind of do the postmortem after calls. And I always say, hey, what went well? What didn't go well? And it's always really effective if they realize it themselves. But then you say, well, that was okay, but maybe this might be a better way. Or hey, you really screwed this one up. That's okay. Won't do it again.
yeah.
And one of my rules that I love is from Coach Bryant, Bear Bryant in Alabama, and he said, when something great happens, you did it.
Mm.
When something good happens, we did it. When something bad happens, I did it. And that type of ownership out of a leader, and if you really do it, no kidding, then you'll build a team that knows you've got their back and that you're going to do everything you can to help them succeed. And Coach Brian had a pretty good career living that. And so that's one of my favorites. Also is that one, and then take the praise, take the blame, but don't make excuses. That's another Coach Bryant one.
Yeah.
And it's a performance sport.
Yep.
Talk to me about barbecue.
So I should have gotten it. I've got the badge on my bookshelf. I am a Kansas City certified barbecue judge. So
Wow.
I've been to the class, and basically all that means is I can be a judge, but if you wear it into a barbecue place, you usually get pretty good service. So, but anyway, I just enjoy barbecuing. It is like therapy. Now, I live in Texas, and there's my friend Alan Howell, who recently passed away, Dixie Barbecue in Johnson
Oh
City.
yeah.
Jared,
Yeah.
he used to say, Mike, you barbecue them old cows down there in Texas, don't you? Well, my lovely bride of 40 years does not eat beef. So I barbecue. Pork is my specialty. So I do pork butts and ribs, and then we'll do some seafood. Fresh oysters are pretty good too. So I just enjoy the therapy of it. It takes about 10 hours to do a pork butt. It's like therapy. You get a little George Strait and Jimmy Buffett playing out there, and it's a requirement that you drink beer as you're doing barbecue. I think that's a state law. So even if it's 9:30 in the morning, then I never drink that early. But my wife's like, why do you have a beer here? Because I have to. But it's like a day of therapy. So I enjoy barbecue just from okay. So I like to use post oak in a offset smoker, um, and get the smoke going, and get it to about 250, and make sure that it stays at that temperature. And my son Michael, that knows Jared, has one of those pellet grills.
Yep.
And if I had two young kids, that's what I'd have too. But I tell him it's cheating because you just set the temperature right.
Yeah.
With me, I'm like, oh man, it's 225. I got to get it up to 275, and just get that smoke going and sit on the patio, and it's just therapy, and I love it. And I happen to be fairly good at it, and so the family likes it when Dad pulls out the ribs and the pork butt and maybe some chicken and does the barbecue. So I'm a barbecue snob, but I love it. It's like therapy, and try to pass that along to my boys, the important stuff.
I love that. That reminds me of one of our clients. We work with a company called Cutting Edge Firewood, and they actually do really high end luxury firewood. So just for burning in your fireplace, but they also sell cooking wood. And so they've got a whole variety like cherry oak, a little bit of everything, but you can just buy a cooking wood box from them. And it's an unbelievable product. I actually gave some to my brother for Christmas this
That's
year.
awesome. I'll give you one tip that will make your barbecue better that nobody else does. On your offset smoke where your wood is, take a half an onion and put it right on top. And it makes the smoke a little sweeter,
Ah,
and really makes a difference in your barbecue. And I'm not a mesquite guy. A lot of Texas people are, Bill. Mesquite barbecue. I think the mesquite's a little harsh,
Yeah.
so I like post oak,
Well,
pecan,
I agree with you.
apple.
I think post and pecan are great. I like apple and cherry, but if I'm doing more like pork or fish or something like that, but I've got my green egg here. It's not an
There
offset,
you go. It's
but
good though.
the whole barbecue process is fascinating to me. I like what you said. It's almost therapeutic in many ways because you're invested when you're doing
Oh,
that, right?
oh, yeah. Trust me, as someone who has ruined a lot of really
Oh,
good HEB meat, that you are invested, and but it's just therapeutic, and it's so much fun. And by the time I'm done and the family starts to eat, I'm kind of like, I don't even want to eat. I just want to see you guys enjoy it and appreciate that and get the smoke going and tick off my neighbors because they like the smell of the smoke. So anyway, it really is a lot of fun.
Well, Mike, so I want to ask you one more like business related question, and then I want to dive into some of your last 30 of the 1900s. But well, I guess it's two. So one, I want to hear your thoughts on Teddy Roosevelt because I named my son Theodore. And number two, I'd love just any advice that you have for people that are looking to get into sales.
So first, Teddy Roosevelt is the man. That's one of the rules. So, I make a lot of my decisions from Teddy because I like, hey, Teddy, should we let the team off on the Wednesday of Thanksgiving? And if we've hit our numbers, he's doing this. If not, so we
The
make a lot of
resemblance,
decisions.
by the way, the resemblance is amazing, by the way, folks.
I should have sent you a picture. I was Teddy for Halloween a few years ago and just did it up, man. And I think pulled it off pretty good.
Wow.
But the thing I like about Teddy Roosevelt is he was a very progressive leader in that he surrounded himself with great people and he was just a positive leader and he always made right decisions for the right reasons. And a quick example would be he invited his friend Booker T. Washington to the White House for dinner right after he became president when McKinley was assassinated. And that was the first time that a black man had dined in the White House as anything other than a servant.
Wow.
And it ended up really making the Southern people mad. It ended up making the Northern people mad. And Teddy didn't care. Because it was the right thing to do. And that just kind of drives me. So his man in the arena speech I have up on the wall, and where you're in the arena, and that's what we're doing in sales. So that's my Roosevelt. I've read everything there is about him. Recommend the trilogy from Edward Morris to learn about him. But to get into sales, I think that, and I actually, one of the programs I'm proudest about that we work with here, and we're about to do a press release on it, is something called Service to Software. And it's an agency, a 501c3 that transitions active duty military people into sales roles. So they give them some training. So I have an intern right now here that's got 4 more months left of active duty, and she's in an internship with us in a sales role. So I like to mentor
Great.
people, and that's a wonderful. So I appreciate your children serving means a lot to me. But for people that want to get into sales, what I usually tell them is, if your heart's in it and you really want to make a difference for people, it's not just about the money. The best advice I can give you is, follow your passion, but line up with some place that can give you some good training.
Yeah.
And Granger is one of my favorite companies that does that. They've got a magnificent sales development program from just the beginning rep all the way through it. ADP does too, but Granger, I tell people that want to get into sales, I told a young service guy yesterday, look, get on with Granger, get on with ADP, somebody that will develop you and teach you the skills that you need to be an effective salesperson. And then you'll be ready for your next job where you can go make, 6 figures or whatever. So that's my advice is just, and then the other one is just be patient with yourself. Everybody thinks sales is playing golf and, having a great time. It's hard, man. If it was easy,
It's hard.
so be patient with yourself, get a good mentor, find a place that you can grow and develop, and then you've got a chance. So that's my advice for it. And look, it's been a weird road for me, but it's been a great career, and I've been able to support my family well for 40 years by being a sales guy.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm very familiar with this show, but we did the little questionnaire, and we've got some information about you. But you said you love the show MASH, which I grew up on MASH too, but obviously I'm a little bit younger. So
yeah, so I love the interaction that those guys had. I mean, they had a high performing team, even though they were dysfunctional.
highly dysfunctional.
Crazy, but I just always loved it. And here's a little spoiler: my favorite character was Colonel Flagg, the CIA guy, who was just nuts, and but loved it. But I loved how Hawkeye took things to heart, and he had a good sense of humor and always looking to do a practical joke or something. But at the end of the day, he cared. And so that's what I really took away from MASH. And Colonel Potter was a great leader too. I use the term horse hockey pretty regularly. One of my rules is don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. That goes with horse hockey because I got a pretty good horse hockey filter with salespeople on that. But just love MASH. I just think it was a wonderful show, and my wife and I still watch reruns of it to this day.
That's awesome. That's great.
Fantastic.
Well, what's like looking back, and I don't even know that we had this question for you earlier, but just kind of looking back on those 3 decades, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, looking back, what's one of the most like influential moments or times in your life during those decades? It could be around a current event that happened during one of those decades, or just something in your personal life.
So I'd have to just say it was probably my 4 years at Alabama, where you go from being a knucklehead kid to hopefully becoming a man. And so I mean that was very influential. Coach Bear Bryant was very influential on me. And then my dad had a couple of friends who were pretty senior executives at different companies in Tuscaloosa that we knew through the store that I was able to interact with. And one of them even introduced me to his wife. And he's, by the way, he passed away, but he was married to Coach Bear Bryant's granddaughter, Mary Harmon, who I know.
Mm.
So, but what that taught me is that you have to work towards a goal and you have to persevere. And look, I assure you, probably everybody on my team had a better grade point average than I did at Alabama, but I made it through.
Mm-hmm.
And so it taught me to focus on a goal. So that was probably the most influential. And then, Ronald Reagan was the first president that I voted for. And he was very influential to me as a leader in that time because he brought hope back to our nation.
Mm.
The nation inflation was bad. There was just a lot of bad stuff going on. And Reagan, almost through his will, convinced the American people that the best was in front of us. And so I always took that positive energy that I think he brought to the country and appreciated that. And the fact that he was, friends with Tip O'Neill, his biggest nemesis, and they would get together after work and drink scotch in the Oval Office and make prank phone calls and stuff. So it just showed me that if you don't agree with somebody, it's okay. Understand their point of view and work with them. And I think that's a good lesson for us even today with the diversion that's in this country. Is we all can work together if we just try to understand the other one's point of view. So that was probably the most influential time for me. Was the early '80s when I was at Alabama.
And it all with you started with watermelons.
It did. It started with watermelons, and then watching Alabama football on TV and listening to John Forney make the play calls. It just had a big influence, on my life. And again, I love history. This is sand from Omaha Beach from a vacation we went on a few years ago, and I got sand for my boys and a few other friends, and just kind of reminds me, we're free because of that greatest generation, and just always respect and remember that.
Yeah, and we're free to do these types of things. So, no, hey, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on episode 2 of Boombox Boardroom, and come back and visit. I can't wait to see more Mike's Rules.
There is a book. I'm about a quarter of the way through the book. I have the outline done.
Okay.
I'm a frustrated writer at heart. So hopefully within the next year or so, we'll have the book out. The good people at the University of Alabama Press have offered to print as many of them as I'd like them to print, as long as I pay them to do it. So we'll see. We'll see what the market is. But if nothing else, I'd like to get it out there and give a little something back to this profession that's been so good to me. So doing that. But guys, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be your second guest. Can't wait to hear when it comes out, and we'll get it out to my network and get you guys some good following. So I appreciate what you're doing here and what you guys are doing for sales.
Are you going to judge it again? Are you going to judge this one?
Here's that's funny, and I even joked, 10.2 for this one versus the 8.5. But no, I don't like to judge myself. It's kind of like those actors that don't want to watch. I'll watch it, but I probably won't. I'll let Andrew and Michael, my 2 sons, judge it, and they'll probably be brutal on their dad. And good for y'all. So we'll get this. Well, I'll come back and let you know what the score is there. But guys, thank you. Good luck with your podcast. I think you're filling a great niche, and wish you all the best. And please stay in touch. This has been my honor.
Oh, we appreciate it, Mike. Thank you.
This has been great. Definitely want to have you back on. And everybody, this wraps up another episode of the Boombox Boardroom. So thank you all for joining. I'm Bill Harris.
And I'm Jared Anders.
See ya.
Later.